name is Dr. Zakia Gates, and I wanted to be presenting to you today my presentation called Using Social Justice as a Lens of Empowerment in Higher Education. So I'm not too sure about the ages of people here. I'm not going to ask, so I'm going to try my best to make it as aligned and connected as possible for this, okay? So what I like to do always is, I like to start out with quotes before I begin a presentation. So I have this quote by Toni Morrison, but there's another one I have by Albert Einstein. I didn't include him on here right now, but I want to show you how both of these connect with what I do as a professor with Cabrini University. So Toni Morrison said, you want to fly, you got to give up the, that weighs you down. So we already know about the four little letters that need to go in there when it comes to this. So I said, I'm not too sure about the ages, but we're all grown, we're all adults here. Thank you, you can handle it, trust me, you can handle it. So I have this quote aligned with what I do because you want to fly, you got to give up that weighs you down. I always like to change, not so much change, but try to get young people's minds to think in another angle and perspective, especially when it comes into higher education. I do believe it starts in high school, even lower than that in middle school. But when I use social justice, which is just a framework that I use in my classrooms right now, I just show you like certain things that I do with them and certain things that we talk about as well. But this also aligns to something that Albert Einstein said years ago too. He said problems cannot be resolved by the same way as how we think right now. So it's like to change like how we look at things. So with my students, I use this quote and Albert Einstein to show them, it's another way of looking at the situation, because college students come into my classroom and they have this fixated narrative about how the world is. And I believe it's my job using social justice to not change your ways, but to show you a different way of thinking about something, but taking all that and just bringing it all together so you can have two views of the world, okay? So, I always try to have a purpose why I do everything. So, my purpose for doing this for you today, this presentation, is to not only discuss with you certain things when it comes to social justice framework in higher ed, but also to show you certain examples that I use, which can kind of get a little intense, and I'll tell you exactly what I teach there as well. But certain examples that not only help students become empowered within themselves, which I feel is most important, is self, but also how to use that same empowerment in the fields that they are currently studying, and how that empowerment can transfer into the corporate world when they get jobs as well. So I always want them to carry that on for the rest of their lives. But to more so put this into perspective and the context to make sure everyone understands, as I stated, I'm an assistant professor of what's called teacher education. So I have undergrad and I have graduate level students. So I have what's called pre-service teachers, which teachers right now are trying to really study how to be a teacher, how to do this, how to do that. But I really delve deep into them getting into themselves. So sometimes my courses at Cabrini make some people feel a little uncomfortable with some of the things that we talk about and some of the things that we do. But at the end of the semester, they're like, oh, okay, it wasn't that bad. I understand what she's trying to do, when we have students of our own. But as an assistant professor, I'm also lead faculty of a committee which is called Inclusivity. And within our committee, our main goal is to continue this reflection about race, about microaggressions, about gender and sexism, how all these things interact and intersect with one another. So I'll show you how all of that connects with the courses that we do and how we use social justice at Cabrini University too. But I tried that too. So if you ever try PowerPoint, that's called the airplane. When you see that, it's called the airplane. So I have the 4 words up here because when I know it's the theme of Diversity Day, and this is my first time with Diversity Day, a colleague of mine said, oh, Zakia, I really can't do this today. Can you just take over for me? I said, yeah, sure. I love about social justice. I saw the theme, I saw empowerment, shared experiences. I said, gotta do this. That's my work, gotta do it. All right? So I like to play this little word association game with participants. So I'm gonna ask you this question, but I'll start off first. The question is going to be, when you see the word or you hear the word empowerment, what's like the one word that associates with that? So for me, when I hear the word empowerment, I hear permit, like allow. This is what I hear. Hi. Peace.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
So when I hear the word empowerment, I think about the word allow. And we'll explain that later on what that means and how that aligns. So I just want to have you can collaborate with one another on your own. But when you hear the word empowerment, what's the one word that comes to mind? Take like a couple minutes. One word that comes to mind. When you hear the word empowerment, what's that one word? In a couple minutes, we'll put some ideas down.
Walked into a big question.
So we up and down.
Independence. Freedom.
Think we're ready?
So,
Okay, let's start from the back. All right.
In the context of what I do, I think it's self-advocacy, self-advocacy, but not just for self, but being able to, yeah, if your comfort zone, to be able to advocate for yourself or what you believe in.
Okay. So okay, thank you. Anyone here? What's the word?
Power.
Just power? Amen.
Independence.
Confidence.
And the rest of the same group. Pretty much a consensus. Yes.
Strength.
Any last thoughts? Any other words? All right, so we have self-advocacy, power, independence, confidence, growth, and strength for empowerment. All right, so mine was, I said allow or permit. Now, sometimes we may look at these words and try to figure out how is it that instructors are able to even implement these traits and these word associations when it comes to empowerment. It can become difficult at times. That's why it takes a lot of time and a lot of planning, a lot of research to actually do this. But at the same time, this may sound a little strange what I'm about to say, at the same time, making sure that my students do not feel comfortable. Okay, I gotta make sure they do not feel comfortable. I see some eyes looking at me, but that's okay. Like, oh my God, I don't wanna be in her class at all when I get to that point. But I have to make sure they don't feel comfortable. So part of my goal is to make sure they feel like a little agitated. And the reason why they start to get agitated is because, as I stated earlier, they come in with this fixated narrative about the world, this one view about the world. And then they get someone who tries to not change their world, but try to integrate other information, so they have a hard time trying to bring things together at times. Not saying they don't have the capability to do it, but we've all been in that same situation, where you have these two thoughts in your head at the exact same time, and sometimes we become explosive, because here's one idea of the world that I had, and now here comes someone else telling me that's not all the way true. So now I have an issue. And who's the person we take it out on? The person who's presenting the information. So sometimes I feel a little uncomfortable with some of the reactions that I get. And I'll tell you exactly what things that I've been told and some things that I have seen when it comes to this. Right, so these are the very things that I want my students to be able to have and to feel: the self-advocacy, the power to more so get your mindset in another perspective, independence, like independent thought from the rest of the world without feeling I just want to be a part of the group. And if I say this, I won't be part of the group. Because part of college is I want to be in. I want to be with the in group. That's why we're in it. To be able to feel confident and to notice when things are being said among those of the group, but having that confidence just to have that strength to be able to grow from one mindset to another. And to also even permit and to allow themselves to think beyond, I know we say the box, but I always say the circle, to think out of the circumference of their own awareness and what's going on, okay? So, without further ado, social justice, okay, in higher education. And I like to use a lot of images. I like to use as less text as possible because it's just too much on the brain, all right? So social justice in higher education. This term, of course, should sound familiar, especially with the things that are going on now. And just a little bit of more background information. I was teaching in the charter school system in Philadelphia for 19 years, from 6th grade all the way up to 12th grade, and now I'm a college professor. And within that context, there were a lot of things that I started to see, to which I said, wait a minute, this work that I'm doing, I didn't even know social justice even existed. So a lot of us do social justice, but it just takes time for us to say, oh, that's what it is. This is what it is. This is what it feels like. This is what it is. This is what it feels like. But social justice is defined across different contexts. So social justice may look one way within your community. Social justice may look another way within your family. And social justice may look another way in contexts such as this, or even in the college setting. But across the board, some of the readings have actually shown that social justice is just when people address three things, but also some subtopics too. But those three things, they address, they're supposed to address. It's power, oppression, privilege. It's all under social justice, but they say this is what it's supposed to address. But at the same time, social justice and what we cover in our college courses with social justice as our mission, but we also cover all of the isms. All of the isms, that's what we shorten it, all of the isms. So when they walk into my classroom, I say, okay, everyone have a seat, we're gonna address all the isms. What is she talking about? Am I paying for this? Is she kidding me? But we address all of the isms. So we get into racism, we get into sexism, we get into classism, we get into ageism. And some people think, okay, what does this have to do with me? I wanna be a teacher for crying out loud. What does this have to do with me? I wanna teach first grade. I want kindergarten, I want pre-K. I say, okay, we're gonna get all into that and how this is done. So these two groups that I have are pre-service and I have graduate level teachers too. So graduate level teachers, sometimes they say, okay, I'm already in the classroom. I already know it. I already know what I'm doing. When I ask them certain questions and there's certain games that we play, then they're saying, oh, man, I didn't know as much as I thought I should know when it comes to this, okay? And most of them teach in urban settings, inner city schools, right? So it addresses these three things, but also all the isms, and that's what we get into. But I had a bit of an issue when I looked into that definition. So I said, okay, it's one thing to address something, but how are they addressing them? How are we even addressing social justice? So I finally just put a little word in place to that, and I said, well, I can address anything that I want, but how am I doing that? So I said social justice in higher education is when you actively address. And actively address means you're doing it actively, you're doing it consistently, you're doing it constantly. Even if you don't see a connection, which we all should see a connection in how all this aligns, but it's actively addressing all of these issues that we currently have in our society. So now this is the good part. This is the good part. So, several courses that I have that I'm teaching currently. One is at the graduate level, and then about 3 of them are at the undergrad level. So some courses that are taught using social justice framework is this. One of the courses that I have, I won't give out the the letters and the numbers, totally irrelevant. I'll just give you like a brief little description as to what it actually entails. This one course that I have. These teacher professionals, we take a close examination into how the historical, social, and political realms of our society and how they fit into a K-12 classroom. And again, I get the same faces, like, what does history and socialism and politics? I'm a teacher, for crying out loud. Just get to the point about other practices that I can use. I said, well, before we even get into the practices, you gotta know about yourself first. So we get all into self. And that takes about a good 3 weeks, like 3 classes just to do this, getting all into self. So in this one course, we get into a lot of things with social, we get a lot of things about cultural, we get into a lot of things about race and so forth. And they still give me the same face. Where is this going? I want to drop the class now. I want to drop the class. I said, no, just wait. It's going to level off in a minute. We're just right here with altitude, and we're going to level off in a minute. So in this one course that I teach, we get into how teachers may have certain biases, which turn into assumptions, which result in stereotypes, which go into stereotypical threats, which comes out in behavior, and how they treat students of color. So we do like this big, huge circle, and I explain all this to them. And once they see biases and assumptions, I make it the same face about, oh God, here we go with the race talk again. But I said, but no, but you're here. Social justice, remember? We're going to address all of these things that may make us feel agitated and may make us feel uncomfortable. So when we get into the course, we investigate this very, very thoroughly. So we get into what biases are. We get into what the difference between biases and assumptions are. And they still say, I still don't see what this has to do with me and my students. Why? Because I love all of my students. So, okay. Do you treat all your students equally? Yes, I do. I treat all of them equally. I said, no, you don't. But I love all of them. No, you don't. Oh, I don't believe this. And I mean, I've had students like actually storm out from this. They come back and say, no, I have to complete my master's and my certification requirements, so I better stay, right? But I treat all of them the same. So, are you sure about that? Yes, I'm very sure about that. I said, okay, you treat all of them the same. I just want to let you know that's a very dangerous statement to even say. But I thought, but we're all. I said, no. I treat them all the same way. I said, that's a very dangerous statement to say. So what we do is we play a little stereotype game. This is what we did. We play a little stereotype game. So it's called the positive stereotype game that we play, just to see whether or not they really see their students as the same or quite distinct and quite different. So this stereotype game, and it's not my game, I didn't create it, but I adopted it from a motivational speaker, and forgive me, I cannot remember his name right now, but if I see his face on social media, I say, oh, that's him. I just can't remember his name right now. So we did this positive stereotype game to prove whether or not if we have these biases, these assumptions, whether or not we do stereotypes, and how that turns into how they treat their students. So, I told them this game we're going to play. Of course, we know positive and stereotype is an oxymoron. One doesn't go with the other. So they say, well, Professor, how is it that we can have a positive stereotype about groups of people? I said, oh, it's possible. Anything's possible. Social justice, right? Anything's possible. We can do this. So, I'm going to ask you as the audience for your help with this, okay? So I told them to write down all the social categories. That we're in. So when this went up, a little agitation. People start to feel uncomfortable. They say, oh God, here we go, here we go. So this is what we're going to do. Positive stereotypes, positive and negative, right? But we're gonna put them together. So I would ask you certain questions. So I'm gonna ask you these questions as well, all right? To either prove or disprove, okay? But I let my students know we're all human. We all have a bias. We all make an assumption. Doesn't make us bad people. But having social justice and using that framework can either keep you in that bias, or it's going to help you change that bias to say, okay, now I can see it from this angle. Now, so I'm going to ask you. Anyone can speak. I need someone to give me a positive stereotype about the white community.
They talk proper.
Hmm?
They talk proper.
Talk proper. All right. Anything else? Any other positive stereotype? Because I can tell you what my students said. One student in particular. How about this? All white people are rich. What does someone else say? They all have big, beautiful homes, lots of land. Big homes. Anyone else?
Cars.
Hmm?
The cars.
Nice cars. Anything else?
They have both parents in the home.
Parents. Alright. So then I moved over here, this category. So I'm gonna ask you again. Give me a positive stereotype about Asians. Anything else?
Industrious.
Industrious. Anything else? And someone told me they're all good at math and science, but I included that with smart. And some people said STEM and things like that, so I included that with smart. Positive stereotype about Latinos.
Oh, God. Really active.
Anything else?
Hardworking.
Say it again? I think I heard it.
Yeah.
Hardworking.
Anything else?
Family oriented.
Very, very.
Okay. Positive stereotype about African Americans.
We're all athletic.
Got it. Sports. Anything else?
Rhythm. Great
There we
rhythm.
go.
Anything else?
We can cook.
My mother can cook, I'm still trying. Any last thoughts?
Creative.
Okay. This is a good list. So we did the same thing in this course, in another course. So, whites, Asians, Latino, and African Americans. Here's a distinction between your answers and the answers that I got from the students. This was filled, this one, and this one. When it came to African Americans, there was nothing there with the students. However, a lot of them took like a lot of time to actually think about something, and my classes are racially and culturally diverse. So when it came over here, this spot was empty for a while. So I had to make my point as to where this stereotype game was going. Came to this, talk proper, that was quick, right? Quick. Asians, I heard smart, that was quick, very quick. Latinos, active, hard workers, very quick. The thinking, right? When I did it with the students and it came here, I had to go to my bag and I said, let me just bring this can of bug spray just in case I get this response. So I pulled out a can of bug spray. They were still thinking. It was like just stuff silencing them. and I put it on, you know, the table. Somebody said, oh my gosh, she's gonna spray us, we're all gonna die. No, I'm not gonna spray you, of course not. But I said, I need the bug spray for all the crickets that are here in the room right now. Because of the silence that was there. So they're all looking at each other across the room like this, and like, oh boy, I should have said something. Do you have a question?
You're saying, so your class is ethnically diverse, so pretty evenly, or just, or just how, I'm just trying to get a sense of.
Out of this class I tried this with, this exercise, there were 15 in the room, 13 white, 2 black. So I pretty much get the same answers across the board, and I tried it with several other students, and for some reason this column, I know the reason, but this stayed blank. And then after I started to talk about it, then I get, oh wait, I have one. And then I hear sports, rhythm, cooking, that's new, that was new. And I hear creative. So.
All three of those last ones all kind of the same thing.
Kind of the
Artistic,
same.
creative, food, music, dance.
Right. So when I had them look at this after I explained, it was like after the fact. Now it's like, oh, now I have one. So the point of this exercise was, but look how much time it took you to think about it. So I said, if it took you that much time to think about it, and I said things after the fact, and you are teacher professionals, and you're in a racially and culturally diverse school, how are you perceiving and looking at the group of students here if you couldn't think of nothing the first time, as you did with this group, and this group? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when a certain group has been ignored in a school setting, and that's what I'm trying to really prepare these teachers, when they have been ignored in a certain type of school setting, that has a lot to do with how that particular teacher will not only give out certain assignments, but it also deals with how the teacher will either set the bar high or to set it low for a particular group of students in an actual classroom. Which explains why, according to the Office of Civil Rights, it does like a biannual collection of data from all of our school districts around the country as to the percentage of suspension rates between certain groups of students. And come to find out that Latino and African American have the highest suspension rate in the entire country. Not to say there's something wrong with the behavior, but explaining to those teachers and pre-service, it's all about our biases and our assumptions as to what we have for certain groups. Okay? So we did this game, then started a conversation. People started to talk about it. Some people didn't like the game, which is okay, because my goal is to make you feel uncomfortable, to get you like a little agitated. Because agitation says a lot about whether or not you're going to promote social justice, or you're going to take your agitation to be very personal, and you're going to disrupt social justice. But agitation for the goal of equality, since those same teachers said, no, I see them as all the same. See them all the same. I love all of my students. I love my students too, but I didn't see them as all the same because I knew they all had distinctions between them. So here, it was just the thinking, the amount of time that was here. This was after the fact. So we looked over it again, and then we started to look at the words after that. So we said, sports. Now I don't play sports, but I'm going to assume play sports sometimes can be a little bit easier. I'm saying quote unquote. Rhythm can be natural. Creativity can be innate or environmental, right? And cooking is when you just watch someone do this and do that, and you just copy what they do. Then we get into all this here. Rich, big homes, nice cars, both parents, that takes hard work to do. That was a synonym we used. Smart, industrious, hard work. And this is a self-explanatory hard work. I said, but when it came here, it was, okay, I can do that. Yeah. I made Mr. Rim, but I tried. Great rhythm. Oh, okay, well, I can watch someone dance. I can see if I can do it. And being creative, okay, I can just take some paper, draw something, and then I'm just creative. But it's nothing that's very, if you follow what I'm saying, like hard-working,
Yeah, sure.
get into that critical thinking stage of actually, this is how I got here. So I said again, you see all your students as equal. You see them as all the same. Or do you? Do you? Okay? So that's part of what I do. So I get them acclimated in that first to do that. And that takes about a good 3 weeks to do. Get them acclimated with themselves. Okay. So once we do that, we get into pronouns. I said, another thing with social justice, you really gotta watch how you use your pronouns in your classroom. And then they're like almost falling off their chair. They're like, oh my God. I was like, what did I sign up for? I didn't just change careers right now. So we get into how we use our pronouns. And we all remember what a pronoun is, right? So I asked these, same students, I said, how many of you have said, oh, you people? You people. I said, how many of you said that? And of course, no one hands goes up, which is okay. This is okay, Oh, you people. Oh my God. Hey, look, come on. You guys. I'm trying to teach here. I'm trying to teach you. Come on, you guys, come on. Just pay attention to what I'm saying here. And then some hands go up. Okay, I've said that. Yes, Professor, I've said that, but what's the big deal? Okay, you guys, like, what's wrong with saying that? I said, but I thought you said you see all these students as the same and equal, right? So why are you making a distinction? Well, what do you mean? Well, why would you say you guys and you have females in your room too? So now you're just giving all the attention to the guys. And it has shown that teachers sometimes give males more of a chance to speak in class, and they give more eye contact in class, and they kind of give them like a push. Okay, you know it, come on, you know, come on, remember this last week? You know this, come on. Whereas females are just kind of, okay, can you help her out with that answer? Can you help her with that? I don't think maybe she wasn't paying attention from last week. This happens. And these teachers in the class, they have admitted this, okay? So we get into you a lot. People, okay, just mark a little too light. We get into saying letter 2, all right.
Yeah,
We're gonna work it out. Okay, here we go. You guys. And first out, you people. So I actually had a student ask me, well, what's wrong with saying this? So I said my question again, are you trying to promote social justice and use it, or are you trying to disrupt it? And the person couldn't answer my question, which was fine. But I said, you don't see a problem with that? I said, no, I don't see a problem with that. I said, okay, well, one, if you're going to be a teacher, it's grammatically incorrect. That's one. I said, you is one person. So you're using one to say more than one, or 2, or 3. This is what you're doing, so you're kind of mixing it up here. So then we get even deeper into that, which I'm surprised I almost dropped my class, to be honest with you. But we get deeper into that. So I said, do you know how dangerous that is to use towards anyone, to say you people? She said, I still don't understand. I said, okay, here we go. I said, this same pronoun, along with this pronoun here, if you want to talk about a group to one, I said, this pronoun right here is the same pronoun that got Trayvon Martin killed. That's where y'all stop. So we get into that as well. And then he said, I don't understand what you're talking about. I said, okay. I said, if you listen to the audio of George Zimmerman when he called the police 911, and the first thing he said was, there's this black guy with a hoodie, and blah, 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 blah. This is what he's saying. It's a black guy, he looks suspicious, he has a hoodie. The person said, okay, and they said, I'm going to pursue him. They said, do not pursue him, that's not a good idea. So he said, no, I'm going to pursue him because they always get away. So he took one black guy and said they always get away. So he used one to a group, which means that his perception of young black men was just negative. So I said, so we want to be careful about pronouns. They can be deadly, and it can do a detriment to a child's mind in the classroom too. So I said, you people is something that we have to totally eradicate. If we're using social justice, I always go back to that, social justice as a framework. You gotta be careful of the language that's being used. towards your students. But I said, if you want to really get your classroom management straight, you want dead silence in the room, say that and watch what happens. And I said, they will get silent. Not saying they're getting silent because they're like, oh, she's serious or he's serious. They're getting silent because they're processing exactly what you said, which was wrong. That's what they're doing. I get a laugh, am I right? So we get into that. Then it gets into the training about this is how you become a teacher, this is how you do this, this is how you do that. But I said, if you want to really, really do this work, you have to be cognizant and aware about what biases that you currently carry, which we all do. We all do. We may have a bias against someone who wears skinny jeans. We may have a bias against someone who wears which your boots are nice, by the way, light colored boots. And every time I see light colored boots, I just know not to treat people very well because I don't like light colored boots. But I said, we're all human. So I explained to them about that, how where you live has a lot to do with your biases. It's like your social location, which helps develop your worldview. But it also helps to more so develop how you respond to worldviews that are different from yours in the classroom, and that's very important as well. So I just tell them, you're a human being, does not make you a bad person, does not make you a racist person at all. You just have a bias that we either need to change, or if you want to keep it, that's totally up to you. But when you're in that classroom, it's not going to work in your favor. It won't. Because students, not calling any student a dog, but students have a very keen sense of smell. And they can smell from the door who's going to use this framework and be real about it, and who's just pretending to use it, just for the sake of just trying to get over it. So I said, they know about this. Another course that we use social justice, this framework, which is very important to use, is a course on how to teach them how to teach social studies and history, so that really gets deeper into it. So when I first looked at what was involved with the course, I didn't really like it. It was kind of mundane and kind of monotonous, like the same. So I said, I want to change all this. So I have them currently right now taking like certain historical figures in history, and they had to re-examine them. So we get into Christopher Columbus. So they have to re-examine Christopher Columbus. So they look at a lot of documentaries. They got to do a lot of research about it. They're currently re-examining Thomas Jefferson. They had to re-examine Abraham Lincoln and George Washington as well. So those are like the main four that they have to re-examine. So some of them have already presented their findings to me. And one of the things that they have said, like across the board, and again, a racially, culturally diverse classroom, I asked them, well, how do you feel with this information? How do you feel now? Dr. Gates, I am really pissed off. I'm really, really pissed off right now. This comes from all the students. I say, why are you pissed off? I know why they're pissed off. I want to hear from you. I said, why are you pissed off? Well, because I was told in middle school that Christopher Columbus and George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, all these guys did like these wonderful things. And they said, not saying that they didn't do it, but now I'm finding out this other side of these same figures that I was told about. So I said, okay, well, tell me what you learned, and how will you, if you're studying to be this teacher using social justice, how would you use that information in your classroom? Let's just say you have first graders. Let's just say you have second graders. You have third. You have high school. What are you going to say and how are you going to go about doing that? And that's where everyone gets kind of quiet. They're kind of scared at that point. Because now they're ticked off, they're emotional, but now it's like, how do I process that to actually go in the classroom and teach it this way instead of the same way that we have been for years? So I said, let's get into George Washington. I said, how did he get his teeth? They said, they just wood, right? I said, oh, well, you missed something. You missed how he took the teeth from his slaves and he used a tool and he banged the tool inside the mouth to get them to bleed, and he took the teeth out and put them inside of his own mouth. And they made the same face that you just made right now. That was gross, but I said, this is a whole re-examination. This is what you're gonna have to do. Yeah, but how do I tell first and second graders that? I said, you can tell them in a very developmentally appropriate way. But I said you have to tell them the truth. So that's what they were really ticked off about, not knowing the truth. And which proves my point, an article that I read, that the majority of students at middle school and high school, they hate history. They hate it
Yeah.
with a
Be
passion.
confusing.
Yeah,
Tell
they
us
hate
one
it,
thing and it's another.
and it's another. So they hate it, really do hate it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I loved history,
You
actually.
loved it?
I did.
Did you see it one way? Or did you see it multiple ways?
That's a good question. I saw it one way.
One way?
Well, I tried to like open my mind to like different views, but I had a pretty good history.
Pretty good history teacher. Social justice, maybe?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
See, many ways.
My senior year, we were like smack dab in the middle of the election, so we were like looking into like
Oh, yeah,
politics and stuff
Good.
like that.
good. And also using social justice when we talk about politics, normally they don't want universities to do this. Of course, we can't tell students which way to go with it, but we highly encouraged. Did you register to vote? You register to vote? Register? Did you get stuff back? Your absentee ballot? Are you going home? What are you going to do? I will cancel class for you to go to vote. What do you want me to do?
My professor did that.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was always like my agenda. Vote.
Yeah.
Make sure you vote.
Yeah,
And then we're like,
yeah.
There's another course that we get into special ed and the inclusive classroom, including everyone in the classroom with special needs. And I hate saying regular ed, so I hate using that word, so I won't use it. I'll just say those with special needs inside of an inclusive classroom. And in that particular course, we get into what's called overrepresentation of students of color who are in special education programs. We get into that a lot. And it's very interesting to me that the teacher profession, not all, really did not know as to why this has occurred and what has happened and what that really means and what it looks like. So I just explained to them, I said, well, Congress is aware of overrepresentation. Like, are you serious? I said, yeah, we're talking about Congress, House of Representatives, Senate. I said, they're very much aware of this thing called overrepresentation where students of color sometimes are targeted to be in special needs programs because of a certain behavior that may be exhibited or something that is said that may be exhibited as well. To which that teacher who may have that bias, that assumption, takes it as, oh, he's being very overly aggressive right now, maybe he has an emotional disability. And it's not the case. That's not the case at all. It's just either the way the teacher has a certain type of practice, and we get into all this role play too. So we do role plays. So I may have them come up and try to teach them like certain types of lessons, and I'll act like that particular student, to which I'm gonna see if they're gonna have like this bias against me if I throw something across the room. If I decide to just bang on the table, if I just decide to fall out of my chair, will they identify me as having an emotional disability or behavioral disability and so forth? When I fall out of the chair, just be, I'm bored. Can you just move on, I'm bored? Or banging on the table. You have a question?
No, Mr. Sinners, if you did that role play,
Mhm.
what would happen if you took, and again, I don't know how you would do it, an African-American person playing the role play, and then you really do substitute a white person playing the role play? Would the implicit bias of your students come through in that role play? I mean, rather than, because they couldn't ignore it'd be interesting to see if they change the way they identify. Not calling it, but actually being different.
Right. I've seen where students have an implicit bias of the teacher. That does come out. And that can only possibly come out, and I'm going to make this assumption, that can only possibly come out depending upon how old the student is, how many years they've been in school, and what has been the experience of that particular student dealing with a teacher that represents that particular bias, if you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I've seen where African American students and Latino students have had a white teacher, female at that, because 63% of the teachers are white and female.
Right. Yeah.
So I've seen where she'll come in, she starts, she's very nice, she's very polite, respectful, lays down the norms, expectations, and then it's all this misbehavior. I'm not doing this. No, get out of my face. Oh no, you can't. All of these things. And I've seen it primarily in middle school and I've seen it in high school. And that could just only be their experience. Not to say that a white female teacher is the problem to them individually, but it's a symbol. It's just that symbolization of, I've seen this before, I'm not gonna listen, I know she has low expectations of me, so sometimes white female teachers have a very hard time just trying to integrate everything into that classroom when it comes to students of color. And a lot of times, I have to do what I can do to help, just to say, you know what, instead of you looking at it this way, not to say they're all a problem. All students are not a problem. Now, if they're 100% a problem, I have to look at you. If you have these constant behavior issues every day, then okay, we have to have a side conversation here. But if it's like the first day and she's getting all this resistance, and I've seen it with mom, this resistance, then it's just about looking at the situation from their angle, in a way. Maybe going in there the next day and doing what's called, I used to do it all the time, I call it teacher inventory. And give them like a little sheet of paper. How best do you want me to teach you? How best do you learn? Let me know what I need to do. Because sometimes teachers get in front and they have this position of power where sometimes they think, I got it. I went through all the training, I got the master's, I got the cert, I know the content, I know it. But do you know your students? That's the thing. So get them to tell you about themselves and how they like to learn, take that home, read it over, and then say, okay, now I know what to do when I come in. One of the biggest issues that some white teachers do not use is called culturally relevant practices, where you have to make everything connect to their experience. So if it's like a math lesson, and in some communities you have a corner store, right? And kids like to bring little black bags and plastic bags, and have all this $20 of junk, okay? And they bring it in, right? And if you're teaching something about addition, subtraction, and you can get into profit and everything like that. So you can get into things like profit, right? Have them bring in their snacks, have them lay it out. How much did you pay for those, what is it, hot Cheetos? I'm sorry, they're gross, I'm sorry. But hot Cheetos, they may cost $2.50 a bag. All right, okay, we got that. How much you pay for that? Okay, $1.50, okay. So if it's $2.50, all right, we're gonna assume that it takes only 50 cents to make the hot Cheetos, the bag, and so forth. So what do you think the store's profit was from that? So that's using culturally relevant practices for them. It doesn't even matter what age, what grade level it is. But if more white teachers do that, those classroom issues, I'm not gonna say they'll totally go away, because kids will be kids, but they lessen, they go down. Because now the student is like, oh, I like her. She's making it relevant, she's bringing a connection to me, she cares about me, self. She's trying to empower me, using social justice as a framework to do that, but also bringing in those practices. So that takes a little time in my college classes to get into, especially with the pre-service teacher professionals. They can more so, oh, okay, I like this. Pre-service is a bit of a resistance because they're always learning like one way to do things. And there's many ways that you can do things like that. Does that answer your question?
No, that's good, yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah, students have implicit biases. They do. Because they see the person, nope, not even gonna listen, nope, I'm done. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the office? Can I call my mom? I'm done. They just give up. So, just some things that, just some statements that I have heard. Either promoting social justice or disrupting it. Of course, all these are pretty much disrupting it. These are things I heard, that's why they're in quotation marks. But, okay, slavery was a horrible thing, but also we're trying to, the but is the problem. Yeah, but, because when I do like these assignments, like this re-examination, I hear these things or these findings of, okay, slavery was a horrible thing, but, okay, now finish the but. And like, well, okay, next person. Next person. What did that black man do before he was shot by the police? Again, disrupting, because looking at a social identity and just automatically thinking, oh, he's inherently violent, so he must have done something for that to happen. I already said about you people and you guys, and this came from one of my students' papers, can't give up the name, of course, but Christopher Columbus did horrible things to Native Americans, but he brought them new skills and new tools.
And new diseases.
And new diseases.
Wow.
So I said, well, okay, well, define for me, and it's business social justice, because I really get deep into their brain. If I could just open it up and say critical thinking here, that'd be great, right? I said, okay, tell me what you mean by skills. What are new skills? Tell me what that means. What does that mean? Well, you know, he taught them how to do. I said, you're not being specific. What does that mean? New skills. What new tools are you talking about? Well, he brought this and he brought that. I said, okay, brought that over, but who's to say they didn't already have that before he came over there?
Exactly.
And it's their silence in the room. Okay. So we get into that too. But I said, define what you mean by skills. Skills. Okay, I can pick up this marker. That's a skill, right? Hold it like this. I'm getting it right. Okay. What's your name?
Leah.
Leah. Now, Leah just came over in my space right now. She said, well, I'm going to show you a new way of holding this marker. But I already knew about this one. No, now you're going to hold the marker like this.
Way better.
Right. This is just way better to hold it like this, the way I can write. But I'm still holding the marker. So I had the skill to hold it, but she just showed me I need to hold it this way because her way is better.
It's showing you a different way.
Right, a different way. But I can still hold, that's the skill of just holding it, right? Just holding it. So I said, tell me what new skills are and what do you mean by new tools? What does that mean?
Well, you know, that second one, especially in the context of criminal justice.
Yeah.
People walk into a courtroom, they'll see a person sitting there, and everyone's innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But everybody says, geez, wonder what they did. So
Exactly.
there's an assumption that the people that are sitting at that chair did something
Did
to
something.
get them there.
Mhm.
And then you have to kind of re-educate people of a presumption of innocence.
Exactly.
But there's always a presumption that they must have done something.
Something, yeah.
That
You can't
caused
put
that.
something.
Same thing with that. What did they do to get shot?
Right,
It's their fault.
right. Justify it. Yeah. So, also with social justice, there was something very interesting that just came out about this study about the impact that black teachers have with students of color. And it was done by Johns Hopkins University. And they found this whole thing about the role model effect, where if students, black students have one black teacher over their life, they're 13% more likely to enroll into college. If they have two black teachers, right? Okay? If they have two black teachers within their lifetime in school, they have a 32% more likely chance to go to college. Also, they found that students of low-income families who are African American, that their probability of dropping out of high school would be reduced by 29% if they had a black teacher between 3rd grade and 5th grade. Now, why did they choose 3rd grade and 5th grade? We should know why. But 3rd grade and 5th grade, because that's about ages of like 8, 9, 10, maybe.
Yeah.
And within that stage of your development,
Yeah.
your mind is very fixated. You start thinking very rationally, and it's called a concrete state, so you see things exactly for how they are. So at that age, and they have a black teacher in front of them, already that black teacher represents, oh, that's the middle class. Even though our salaries don't say middle class, but that's how they see that. So when they see this representation, oh, if he can do it, if she can do it, I can do it. So it's like the role model effect that I've seen. So I thought that was interesting. But, you know, I'll tell it to my students as well. And unfortunately, in my classes in undergrad and graduate, I have no African American male students at all. I have white, I have one Latino male, and I'm saying one because the classes are kind of small. One Latino male and some African American females, but I have no black male students.
Do you know why that is?
Explain.
No, I'm saying like, do you
do.
have like a reason of why that is?
My reason is this, and I have to go back to this whole thing about patriarchy, because the male has always been told through society, it's your job to be the protector and the provider,
Oh, yeah.
okay, of your family, right? So we already know that teacher salaries are not where they should be, okay, unless you really stand for a long period of time and depending on what district you actually are teaching in. So some of their thinking is, wait a minute, I could make so much more here. I know where I'm needed here, because this is where black men are needed, is here. But the money, how am I going to take care of not only myself, but any family that I foresee that's coming, what am I going to be able to do? Go back to school again, do this again, have a little side job, what am I going to do?
Right.
So that's why the numbers are so low. But they have like certain initiatives to try to pull black men into the classroom. So to answer your question.
Yeah.
Do you think that also comes kind of the perception, I'm not saying, and maybe it is money, of female jobs and male jobs? And so nursing is a female
Female.
job. And so all those kind of professions have been tagged as that. And then, I guess in the nursing profession, it's definitely changing. You see many
it's
more
kind
male
of-
nurses.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know much about the teaching profession from that perspective.
Especially young teachers.
This is true.
primarily women.
In the 200 years, they've been doing all this research about education. And 200 plus odd years ago, 96% of the teachers were men.
Wow.
Really?
Were men. But when the rise of feminization came up, okay, not the feminist movement, but feminization, what happened is that the men started to say, well, hey, listen, the women know how to take care of the children, so why not just have them come in to these one-room classrooms that we have? But when they come in, we'll just pay them 1/3 of the price. So this is, if you really think about it, education is the only occupation to which the roles have totally flipped.
Okay, and I'm not, so I had a friend's father who was a doctor, a very educated man, and he had a lot of daughters that are very successful. He never held his daughters, they're very successful. But he claimed that education has declined because of the feminism. And because that years ago, like in my mother's generation, or our parents' generation, if you're a woman, you were not allowed to be a doctor or a lawyer
True.
Yeah.
or an executive. So the only opportunities were secretaries or teaching. So that the most brilliant women went into teaching. And that therefore, as they left to become doctors and lawyers, it decreased the quality of the teaching.
Teaching field. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not arguing he's right or wrong. There was a different way of looking at it. 40 years ago, the difference between a lawyer in New York and the teacher in New York was very small, the salary. Now it's maybe $100,000 difference. So if you're a young female, you're going to go into make $100,000 more as a lawyer than you may as a teacher.
As a teacher.
Before it wasn't that great. It was a different way of looking at it.
No, that is a very different way to look at it. I didn't even think about it in that context as well, as far as the feminist movement. I mean, and I know a lot of things are, I'm not saying you are, blamed on the feminist
No,
movement
I'm
as
not.
well.
I'm not.
Right.
Trust me.
Right. This is whole, it's just interesting how these genders have switched. This is like the only field that has happened. Medical field is still male dominated.
Yeah.
Nursing, always female dominated. Engineering, still male dominated. I'm not sure what you're studying.
I'm a communication broadcast journalist.
That's pretty like 50-50.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Sure.
pretty much.
I'll give you one other example that I use all the time. It's almost a game I play. My wife's a physician, and she works in a hospital. So many times people say to me, "Oh, does your wife work outside the home?" And I just go, "Yes, she does." And they go, "What does she do?" And I says, "Oh, she works in a hospital." That's all I say.
Okay.
And you'll be surprised how many men and women say to me, "Oh, is she a nurse?"
Is she a nurse?
And I'll go, no, she's not. And they go, "Oh, she's a therapist." And I go, "No, she's not." And then they'll say, "What does she do?" And I'll say, "She's a physician." And you can see the look of embarrassment come on their face. They go, and they realize how silly they just sound.
Yeah.
Staring, they'd rather just say, "What does she do?" Because they couldn't conceive that
Right.
she'd be a
Their
physician.
perception.
And it's still,
What
it's just
females-
2018, and we think we're past it.
Yeah, yeah, still making some progress. I think, and I'll leave you with this. Malcolm X says something about progress, when our progress is really taking place in this country. And he said, if I take a knife and I stick it in your back and I go in 9 inches, and I pull it out 6, did I make progress? Is there progress that's been made? The problem is still there. The blow is still there, what has caused that to happen. But progress is very slow. And I have a Cabrini student, African-American male. This was years ago when I was teaching another course. He's probably the one I probably did have. And he came up to me after class, and he said, "Professor, can I say something to you?" And I said, "Sure." And he's looking around this way and this way, thinking, what is going on? And he said, "You're the first black professor I've ever had." And this was 2016. And I said, if we're still saying the first in the 21st century, That knife in the back, you're pulling out 6, the blow is still there. It's very, very slow, very slow.
So, I go to HBCU, so I go to Bowie State in Maryland. So like, what do you think that comes into, like, what do you think that comes into play, like in importance in our culture, as far as like education is concerned? Because I have a white English professor, but like, she's like really relatable, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, she actually like carries us, but like at HBCU, there's a lot of like male professors. There are like few female professors, so it's kind of like the opposite of what I experienced in school. Cause I had like maybe 2 black teachers, or like 3 my whole school career. I didn't have any in elementary school, but I had a few. I had like 1 in middle school, and I had 3 in high school, all 3 my senior year. So like, what do you think the importance of HBCUs as far as African American students are concerned comes into play, as far as like what they do?
It's a good question. I also went to the HBCU, I went to Cheney.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, so that's where I got my master's. I got my doctorate at Capella University.
Okay.
HBCUs are very, very important historically. I learned a lot at the HBCU, not saying I didn't learn from other institutions, because I did, but I really learned about who I was as a person, being a woman, being African American, from an HBCU. And they also use like the social justice framework, to which I didn't even know what it was at that point. But I think they're very, very relevant. I know sometimes in the current administration that we currently have in politics, the funding is not going there as much as it should. But I think that you will not only get a good education from HBCU, but an effective one as well. Anyone get a good one, but how effective was it? Where's it going to go for you at that particular point? But our HBCUs are struggling a bit. I wish some of our celebrities would kick in.
Yeah.
All the money that they have. Really kick in, like Kevin Hart, I love. But, you know, that's another story. That's another story. As far as the progress of HBCUs, they've been around for hundreds of years. A lot of them popped up after the Civil War. Some did before that. So they very much have a historical site and impact and insight in this country. Very much. I think anyone should go to a HBCU, because that's when you really start to learn and get out of those biases and those assumptions about other races and cultures and ethnicities. I taught at Temple, I didn't see it. Don't disrespect the Temple, didn't see it. I taught at Harvard, didn't see it until I had to do something with it. So it's all about the instructor. You know, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, definitely.
And the point I think you're making is, to a large extent, what you learn in college, 1/3 of it's in the classroom, and 2/3 outside the
Outside.
classroom. And then, that's where you're really growing as a person, and I think that's where you're.
And that's why I went for all my students, it's beyond this, and you have to think this way, not trying to change anything about it. But now you have to start to think outside the circle of your own awareness and what's out there. So we did Q&A. But I thank everyone for coming. I have my card here for you. Contact information you'd like to have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. There's a big lunch downstairs. I didn't mean to hold you over 5 minutes. I apologize about that.